Pandemics, Goals, Methods, and Puppeteers. In 2015, the biggest outbreak of the Zika virus infection occurred in South and Central America, until then completely harmless to humans. Mutation made the virus dangerous, especially for unborn life. While pregnant women went through a fairly harmless course of disease caused by the Zika virus, it had an enormously damaging effect on the fetus. The consequence could be microcephaly, a too small growth of the head with accompanying developmental disorders. Interestingly, the virus had been declared an epidemic in countries where no evidence of natural occurrence of the Zika virus could previously be detected. Shortly after the outbreak of the fever, with its devastating consequences for babies and their families, demonstrations took place not only in major Brazilian cities, but also in many countries around the world. The fear of having malformed children caused the cry for abortion to become loud, although in these countries abortion was still a crime. Supported or led by organizations such as Amnesty International, the masses demanded a general legalization of abortion. The following Russian film, Pandemics, Goals, Methods, and Puppeteers, gives possible answers to whether the spread of the Zika virus could be connected to this call for abortion, and what correlations can be found between these two issues. In 2015, the biggest outbreak of Zika fever in history began in South and Central America. The Zika virus caused a birth defect in the fetus, microcephaly. It manifests itself in significant reduction in the size of the skull and is associated with possible mental retardation, malformations of the nervous system, and hearing and vision disorders. An interesting fact is that the Zika virus was harmless to humans until 2013, when a single mutation occurred in the virus's DNA, and it gained the ability to enter the human fetus and infect brain stem cells. How did a previously harmless virus develop such superpowers? Military scientists working on a diplomatic basis, and thus enjoying diplomatic immunity, are testing artificially created viruses in Pentagon laboratories in 25 countries. In Georgia and Ukraine, the Middle East, Southeast Asia and Africa, U.S. biolaboratories are financed by the military service DTRA, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, with a budget of $2 billion. It is striking that the virus did not cause mass pandemics in its original locations. Between 1951 and 1981, the virus was confirmed in Uganda, Tanzania, Egypt, Sierra Leone, Gabon, as well as in Asia, India, Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. However, the virus caused no pandemic in these countries, while in South America, over 1.5 million people were infected. Why was the virus able to spread in such a way in areas where it had never existed before? The carrier of the Zika virus is a mosquito, better known as the tiger mosquito. There is a type of biological warfare in which insects are used to spread infectious diseases, entomological warfare. Such insect tests are said to have been carried out by the Pentagon in Georgia. This is proven by documents of a project. In 2014, the Lugar Research Center in Georgia was equipped with a special insect breeding facility and started the Sandfly Project in Georgia and the Caucasus. Sandflies carry dangerous parasites in their saliva and transmit them into human blood when they bite. The disease they cause is of great interest to the Pentagon. A report by the American Army entitled Arthropods of Medical Importance in Asia and the European USSR lists all local insects, their habitats, and the diseases they transmit. A 1981 report compares two scenarios, an aerosol bomb attack on a city on the one hand and 16 attacks by blood-sucking insects on the other hand, and their evaluation of cost-effectiveness and number of victims. A report shows that the latter method can kill 625 people for only 29 cents per victim. Parts of the report, such as the mass production of mosquitoes, are not released, but this means that the operation is still in progress. This type of mosquito is a carrier of diseases such as tropical fever, chikungunya virus, and Zika, a virus that causes genetic defects in newborns. The essential difference between the Zika fever pandemic and everything else is that it targets the children in the womb. Why did the pandemic specifically target unborn children? The answer may lie in the events that followed immediately after the pandemic. The head of the Brazilian Epidemiological Surveillance explained that women living in areas where Zika fever is prevalent should avoid getting pregnant for the time being. In neighboring Colombia, the country's health minister said that the wisest solution remains to limit the number of pregnancies during the Zika fever outbreak. The same statements were made in Jamaica and Haiti. The question of what to do in view of the outbreak of Zika fever was omnipresent in the press. Experts discussed the necessity of legalizing abortions. Catholic Latin America was an island in the world where abortions were still forbidden. Now, there was a good reason to reconsider these restrictions. History shows that the law for legalization of abortions was necessarily preceded by corresponding epidemics, which then could be used as an opportunity to pass such a law. The Zika pandemic has led to a public debate on abortion, as was the case in the United States in the mid-20th century after the rubella epidemic. In 1921, Margaret Sanger founded an organization called the American League for Birth Control. The name of the organization was also its program, Birth Control. In order not to raise unnecessary questions in the public, the organization was then renamed. It is now called the International Planned Parenthood Federation. In many countries, this organization contributed to the legalization of abortion. In Sweden, for example, abortions have been allowed since 1946. In Great Britain, since 1967. Not insignificant is also the fact that before 2012, abortion was only allowed in Brazil if the pregnancy was caused by rape or if the mother's life was endangered. Then in 2012, the Brazilian Supreme Court ruled that abortion is allowed if anencephaly is found in the embryo. The Brazilian justice system had thus paved the way for events that were yet to happen. This decision was taken 3 years before the outbreak of Zika fever, which can cause microcephaly in newborns. To support the legalization of abortions, organizations such as Amnesty International conducted regular campaigns. Until then, Ireland, Malta, and the Philippines had very strict laws to protect the rights of unborn children. But through the efforts of organizations such as Amnesty International, abortions were legalized in Ireland in May of 2018. At the end of 2017, protests against the ban on abortion took place in major Brazilian cities. On August 9, 2018, abortion lobbyists also tried to pass the law through the Argentinian Senate, but failed. So it is clear that the Zika virus pandemic was the first step on the way to legalizing abortions. Pressure is rising on this issue and will only increase. Russia and the CIS are countries where abortions have been legal for a long time. The Trotskyist, Marx-oriented communists opened the way to legalizing abortion in 1922. The ban on abortion was last in force during Stalin's era from 1936 to 1955, with the exception of abortions for medical reasons. And today, every woman has the right to abortion at public expense. According to official figures, 55,360,000 abortions were performed in Russia between 1990 and 2018. German legislation, however, prohibits abortion. Only in special cases may a woman terminate her pregnancy until the 12th week. Under the influence of the life-supporting organization Pro-Life, abortions on demand or for social reasons were banned in Poland. In 1996, a traditional march for the protection of life took place in Poland. Hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in Warsaw to raise their voices in defense of life. It worked. At a World Bank meeting in Washington, a hypothetical scenario of a new disease outbreak was presented. Tim Evans, the World Bank Group's Senior Director of Health, Food and Population, said that the pandemic is 100% likely to occur and that it will happen faster than we expect. The World Bank decided to set up a special fund and issue so-called pandemic bonds worth $425 million to combat 6 types of viruses. The World Bank expects a new pandemic in the next 10 to 15 years, causing damages in the range of $750 billion. At the Munich Security Conference, Bill Gates said that humanity must understand that a potential pandemic virus could kill up to 30 million people in just 1 year. In his view, this threat is comparable to that of a nuclear war and climate change. Another type of biogenetic weapon is the ethnic biological weapon. These are weapons that predominantly attack ethnic groups or genotypes, although the official development of such weapons has never been publicly confirmed. Documents show that the USA collects biological material from certain ethnic groups, such as Russians and Chinese.
Вы знаете, что биологический материал собирается по всей стране? Причем по разным этносам.
Well, you know that biological material is collected throughout the country, and from different ethnic groups and people who live in different geographical locations in the Russian Federation. Here's the question you should be asking yourself. Why are they doing this? They do it purposefully and professionally. Well, we are an object of very great interest. And also what I said in the first part of my speech, all of this is in correlation. You see, of course, we must face this without fear. Let them do what they want, and we must do what we must do. Pandemics. Goals, Methods, and Puppeteers, read by Pavel Ivanov, specifically for the project Fursov School of Analytics. One final note, KLA-TV is not interested in fomenting or confirming fears of any virus with the release of this film. Rather, the intention is to compare facts from recent history that were dealt with in the film and to find possible clues as to what goals are being pursued against the background of fear-inducing epidemics and pandemics that have been declared.